wonder what's hot in the baking world right now? It's not even that complicated. You get store-bought croissants, cut them open, shove in some store-bought cookie dough, and that's it. Hi everyone, I'm Gemma Stafford, professional chef, cookbook author, and creator of Bigger Bolder Baking. Welcome to Need to Know, your go-to podcast for everything baking entertainment. From the latest trends,
this is the viral scrambled pancake trend.
What? To the tips and tricks you crave.
We discovered that if you take apple peels, toss them in a little cinnamon and sugar, and bake them for about an hour in the oven, you get a really lovely treat.
Plus exclusive interviews with baking pros.
Hey, it's Liz from the Sugar Geek Show. Thanks for having me, Gemma.
We've even got the Bold Baking Hotline to answer all of your baking queries and questions.
Is a Dutch oven really necessary for baking bread, and what difference does it make?
Yes, I think we probably would agree on that, do we, Oni?
Yeah,
oh, good. So join us every Sunday for your new weekly baking ritual. It's everything you need to know.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
HRN is food radio supported by you. Learn more at heritageradionetwork.org.
Westholme is working with the land to create nature-led Australian Wagyu. Westholme believes that when nature leads, flavor follows. Learn more at westholme.com.
I'm Allison Kane, and welcome to In the Sauce, a podcast about building consumer brands from the ground up. I love doing this show because I get to interview everyone from production gurus to marketing and social media mavens, anyone who can guide me on this crazy journey. This is the story of building Haven's Kitchen sauces, but it's also the story of every growing brand because we're all in the sauce. Today, I'm speaking with McCall Gridley, Head of Sales and Partner Experience at Tastemade. With 15 years of experience across TV, social, and streaming platforms, McCall drives sales strategy, fosters key partnerships, and enhances the overall Tastemade partner experience in the U.S. Since joining the Tastemade team in 2015, McCall has held numerous roles and has been instrumental in establishing their presence within the advertising community. She spearheaded their first global partnership, the first of its kind menu innovation with Subway restaurants, and led the expansion of the company's advertising business in various markets. Most recently, McCall served as head of industry, leading Tastemade's biggest verticals across food and beverage and alcoholic beverage in the U.S., where she saw through the company's recent multi-year, multi-million-dollar partnership with Constellation Brands. Welcome, McCall.
Thank you so much. Great to be here. Thank you, Allison.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you here. Before we get into all the things about Tastemade and media and content, would you just start off with what is Tastemade? I remember it from, like the mid-teens with the videos, but it has evolved a lot over the last several years. So maybe a little background on what it is and how it's evolved over the past several years.
Absolutely. So Tastemade is an independent media company that specializes in creating award-winning original program in the categories of food, travel, and home and design. We're on a mission to transform our viewers into doers through content that entertains and inspires. Tastemade reaches an engaged and passionate community of viewers through our social and streaming channels, Tastemade, Tastemade Travel, Tastemade Home, and Tastemade na Español, as well as through our weekly newsletter and our Tastemade Plus apps. These channels connect viewers to new ideas, new places, and new people, and really build out this Tastemade ecosystem that our brand partners can tap into to connect with this hard-to-reach audience. We've evolved a lot. I've been at Tastemade for almost 10 years, so evolution is a part of my history here as well. Since our inception, we've really taken an audience of first approach and meeting consumers where they are with premium video programming designed specifically for how and where they're watching. So depending on what platform they're watching on, what type of mindset that they're in. And for many years in our early days, that meant programming exclusively across every major social platform. But as media content consumption has evolved, so too has what we consider to be the Tastemade ecosystem. So in 2018, we launched our first streaming channel well before the words like streamers and fast were ubiquitous.
Right.
We were there. And today that ecosystem continues to evolve as audiences find new and different ways to watch the many, many types of content that we're creating and putting out in the world.
It's funny, when I was doing sort of like my draft and my research, I was thinking about media in general, which, you think about probably every minute of every day, but as a sauce maker, I don't think about that often. But it has been like a crazy decade. I remember when Instagram got kind of hot. It was like 2013, 2014, it feels like. And, I've talked about that on the podcast before, where people all of a sudden started just sharing their food. I mean, all over their social channels, what they were making, what they were eating. And then those like videos became all the rage, people watching cooking as entertainment, which I guess they've always done since Galloping Gourmet and Julia Child. But this became just like a much more intimate experience, I guess, when it was on their phones. And I guess one of my questions for you is like, do you feel like there was an inflection point where the company was like, okay, traditional media, the media that we all kind of grew up in, where there was advertising and, a big company would pay for these 3 spots, and, that all seems to be different now. And then all of a sudden you had all of these different social media channels. So it's all kind of gone into this like hodgepodge of what the difference is between like what's media, what's content, who are the experts, who are the creators. And I guess, was there like a moment when you've been there in the last 10 years where you're like, okay, we need to take this in this direction because this is what's happening with the model or with the audience, or, any kind of big picture thoughts on that?
Yeah, certainly. That's a great question. I feel like you're in my brain with these very philosophical thoughts about the media landscape in general. And it has certainly been an interesting and oftentimes tumultuous 10 years in the industry at large. I would say there's 2 major inflection points that come to mind. The first is really the impetus for why we started Tastemade to begin with. We really saw the writing on the wall as to the fragmentation and just variety of content that viewers were seeking out. At that time, prior to Tastemade, you were really watching video content in a TV environment that was premium, super expensive to create, really high quality, or you were watching really low budget UGC content on YouTube, and that was pretty much it. And so we were out really trying to create the argument that millennials, which at the time were the Gen Z of 10 years ago, millennials were over the traditional confines of advertising and were really seeking out brands to be additive to their experience as opposed to being interruptive. And that's what the impetus for branded content in general really was at Tastemade, was how can we not only bring premium content that at that point in time had only lived exclusively on television, how can we bring that to the social environment where people were spending more and more of their time? And then how can we make content that puts brands at the center of the inspiration at that moment when people are looking to be inspired? So in their feeds, how do we put content there and really redefine what advertising means? And that was incredibly new at the time. And we had people looking at us saying, I don't understand. I need your banner specs. I need your pre-roll specs. And we were like, that's not where we are. We really want to meet you. We want to meet your target consumers in the same places that you as a consumer want to watch content. And so really reframing that.
It's amazing, actually, kind of going back and looking back in time at that kind of, this democratization in a way of what counts as watchable, and what people, and I mean, I definitely grew up where like, if you were going to make content, you had to have someone that kind of crowned you as someone who could make content. And then there had to be a massive production schedule. And this, we didn't even call it content back then, and all of the costs. But at the same time, you're right that a lot of the stuff on social, even today, I was with someone and he was really frustrated because he couldn't find a good like chocolate mousse recipe. And I was like, that's because like a vast majority of the stuff that shows up when you're searching is not vetted by an actual recipe developer or a chef. It's just, so how do you find that in between where you're not necessarily paying for something super fussy or having to be told what you want to watch, but get what you want, where you want it, and have it be good. And then at the same time, brands can leverage that opportunity into something that works for them, where they're like, I love that, where it's an addition, not a disruption to sort of that information getting experience. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Certainly.
I think this is a good place to take a quick break, because then when we come back, we'll get into all of the things that you're doing now. So we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Whether you're a chef or just love going to restaurants, you know the best ingredients are everything, especially when it comes to beef. In Northern Australia, there's a different approach to raising high-quality beef. Westholme, based in Queensland and Northern Territory, is working with the land to create nature-led Australian Wagyu. Westholme stewards 16 million acres of rangeland guided by their natural ecosystem. They're led by a belief that if they balance the needs of their cattle with the needs of the environment, both can thrive. Westholme's team of rangeland experts and nature managers use a variety of tools to monitor and respond to the welfare of the environment, like satellites that assess grass health and on-the-ground research. Cattle are happier when they have the freedom to forage and explore, so Westholme ensures that they can roam wild, foraging at will for the first 2 to 3 years of their lives. Their cows graze on native grasses like Mitchell grass, which is only found in Australia, along with dozens of other plants, herbs, and seasonal legumes. The result is a high-quality Wagyu beef that reflects the terroir of Northern Australia and a flavor suited to complement any cuisine. Westholme believes that when nature leads, flavor follows. Learn more at westholme.com.
I'm back with McCall Gridley, Head of Sales and Partner Experience at Tastemade. Okay, so back to what you were saying before the break, brands being additive, not disruptive. I think that right now the word of choice is storytelling, because I think we all really know that people don't want to be sold to, even if they're being sold to. They don't necessarily want to feel like they're watching an infomercial. They want to be a part of the story. They want it to be entertaining. They want to feel like they're getting some value out of it. And I think that's what your sweet spot is. So I'm just curious what some sort of parameters that you think of when you think of the difference between storytelling and infomercial, and how you help brands create compelling content that is sort of more storytelling, more additive than disruptive.
That's a great question. I think it really starts with the consumer mindset. So just at a very, very basic level, thinking about yourself as the receiver of whatever it is that you're creating, and asking yourself the questions of like, is this something that is providing me with some sort of added experience, education, entertainment? What is this providing back to me? And really putting yourself in the position of your target audience. And furthermore, it's all about context. It's all about where that piece of content is showing up and what role that channel, that distribution channel, plays in the overall ecosystem of your story. And so one of our, if not our biggest value proposition at Tastemade, beyond just being great storytellers is building an ecosystem where you can reach consumers at many different points throughout that consumer journey, which allows for a very multidimensional, layered approach to storytelling. So when people think of storytelling, you think of a cinematic show that you see on your big screen in your living room. But storytelling takes on many different formats and can look many different ways depending on why someone is there and the type of content that they're looking to be met with. And so I think context is an environment is a super important consideration for what makes somebody a great storyteller versus the funder of an infomercial. So what is the platform, starting with what is the platform that you're distributing on, or platforms in our case? What is the consumer mindset on that platform? And then not trying to make that piece of content serve too many purposes. And so we think about like the streaming properties as a really great opportunity to align with the equity of Tastemade, align with our hosts, really telling those upper and mid funnel stories in a really contextual way that feels native to how our audience is used to being spoken to by Tastemade. And so we, as the distributor and also the creator, have the benefit of understanding, okay, what is the brand tone? What is the brand voice? How do we make sure that comes across? But then also thinking about the other elements of our distribution ecosystem at your fingertips and how you can extend that story and provide a differentiated value depending on those different touch points. So I use, if you're creating something around cooking on our Tastemade streaming channel and you're aligning with our hosts, our chef hosts, what is the content that is actually going to be additive to them when they're on Pinterest? Is it the recipe that they can then go home and make themselves? Is it a behind the scenes on Instagram that provides additional tips and tricks from that host? So finding different ways to communicate and engage with that audience in a way that is differentiated, but also additive across every touch point.
Okay, so that was amazing. And I now have like 17 follow-up questions. But one of the things I want to ask quickly first is like, so when I think of the funnel, you were talking sort of top mid funnel, when brands are doing that sort of, I don't want to call it ads, but content with your hosts. Is there ever an opportunity for brands for like shopping? Like, could it ever be a bottom of the funnel situation where they're using a product, they're using a certain type of rice, and that rice is then somehow shoppable? Or does that feel too home shopping or QVC and like not the purpose of that? Is that out of context for that?
No, that's a great question. Shoppability is a very buzzy topic right now and something that is being asked for as a priority from more and more brands. The moment we're in right now as a shoppable society in general is still in its nascency, especially when it comes to shoppable television. And also the shoppable journey is not the same across every category. So there are categories that are just very, very endemic to shopping. Beauty, health and beauty comes to mind. When I think about that, those are very small impulse purchases or things that people are going to buy as one-offs. That being said, shoppable online shopping looks very different for categories like CPG, especially CPG food and beverage, where you may not be you're not typically buying one individual product at a time. So when we're educating our clients about the role of shoppability, especially shoppability on streaming, it's about how we can use that technology and those mechanisms to move people down the funnel, but not expect that it serves the whole funnel. Same. Right. Exactly. Yeah. So this is one piece of the funnel, one piece of your overall marketing tactic. And how can we make sure that it's doing the best job at the task that we know it's intended to do?
That makes so much sense. So yeah, because, even take Tastemade for a second out of it, when we as a brand are thinking about all of the different tactics and all of the different things, like it is tempting to want something to be both attention getting and converting into sales. But generally what we find is like attention is one job, consideration is another job, and actual purchase is a very different job. And it's when those three things, you have three different tactics that kind of work in synergy together. Someone sees it, then they see it again, then they see it in a context of something that they're like, oh, this feels now it's like vetted to me and it's less risky for me to buy it. And then at the very end, they're in a position where like there's a yellow tag or there's a BOGO or whatever it is in my case. And that's when they buy. But if you try to introduce something at a festival and also make it for sale, you're not selling it. At least in my category, which I think is it's cool that you framed it that way. Cause I literally have a little funnel in front of me and I have like star at the top, star in the middle, X at the bottom. And then the other question I had about, where the consumer mindset of where they're receiving stuff. Being honest, like, I don't think we're very good at being that entertaining. I think we are really educational. My guess is that has something to do with me not being incredibly entertaining, but being fairly educational, but we can have a therapy session after. But what's always confusing to me is like, as a team, we are laughing all the time. We're making jokes all the time. We're quite funny. It just doesn't necessarily translate through to the brand. And I'm wondering if there are certain channels, like you could make it really reductive and say like YouTube is more educational and TikTok is more entertainment, or which I know is a silly way to put it. But in general, do you guys think about people are on Instagram for X and Y, and they're on TikTok for Y and Z, and they're on YouTube for A, B, and C? Like, do you get that granular, I guess, with the way that you're matching the content to the people who are receiving the content?
Certainly. And we're thinking about not just why people are on there, but the types of formats that work best at doing the job that is best served to be done on that platform. That's a very long-winded way of saying, like, is the format the right format? So if you think about trying to change perception, or you're looking to showcase the fun, comical side of your brand, or at least the essence of the people that work for your brand, how do you find a platform where you can leverage a creator that also embodies that same spirit and really lean into content there if that's your goal? If you're trying to make the brand seem more lighthearted or approachable or fun, how can you use a platform where hosted content is prioritized and hosted content is what's being sought out as a way to communicate that message? You probably aren't going to want to do a standalone recipe piece of content and expect that that's going to be able to show the lighthearted nature of the brand.
Yes. No, that makes total sense.
I think it's about choosing format plus distribution. But there are definitely platforms that are, I'm a huge Pinterest fan.
Me too.
I love Pinterest as a platform. I think it's a super valuable platform for brands, for CPG brands in general, because it is the place that you go when you are actively seeking to find something to do now or in the near term future. And it opens the opportunity for brands to be in a less ephemeral environment. So there's the save functionality. You think about people saving on Instagram and Pinterest. Those tend to be really great places for recipe content because it's places that people go back to and they look through their saved recipes, and there's that return behavior in it.
Yeah. We love saves. Ashley on my team has been like drumming the saves drumbeat or whatever the expression is for years. And I'm like, eyeballs, as a typical founder. Okay. So I'm very friendly with Ellen Bennett from Headley and Bennett. And I remember when she was making the TV show on Tastemade. So for everyone who hasn't seen it, she has a show. It's fantastic. And it's not a branded show. It's Ellen helping people make their kitchens special. And going through in her typical sort of like, we're just going to take this, we're going to do that. We're going to, it's amazing. What I think is so genius about it is that it is an example of a show that has true entertainment value that you would watch and you wouldn't necessarily think that you are participating in a brand. And yet everything about it just oozes Headley and Bennett. And I would imagine that there would be real conversion, even if it's not quote unquote shoppable. I would imagine that people would definitely, it's like this beautiful, virtuous cycle of content and brand and story and her, and everything just aligns. Are there other examples? And I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, because that's sort of, for me, like the golden nugget for a CPG brand. Like if I had an unlimited budget, I would most certainly have a cooking show that featured our sauces, but also a ton of recipes and also the team. And, you could get to know the brand, and you could also, even if you weren't able to click and buy, you would know Haven's Kitchen in a different way. And you would know what we made and the value proposition that we were trying to put forward just through really good storytelling. So I'm wondering your thoughts on the show, and also if there are any others, and if it's a goal to make more of them, or, basically like your thoughts.
Sure. I love the show. I have not had the privilege of meeting Ellen in person, but have been a Headley and Bennett fan for years. So I was really excited about this show. You nailed it. Like, this is such a great example of how brands can create entertaining first content without having to be a product plug. Like everything about that show, to your point, embodied the Headley and Bennett brand. So even if you
100%.
didn't see the apron and you didn't know that the ampersand on her apron was the Headley and Bennett brand, you could come across Headley and Bennett on another platform and instantly feel like you understood that brand through the feeling that show gave you. And so that is like the definition of success from a branded content standpoint. I will note that this show was actually shoppable. This is the first show that was shoppable. We actually launched, what I didn't get to say in the shoppable part of the conversation is we actually launched a partnership in July with a company called ShopSense AI that is really pioneering shoppable technology on screen. So really taking that feeling that we all know when you were watching, whether it was Sex and the City, and saying, gosh, I really want that outfit. Like, how do you get that outfit? And they're making our content shoppable. So this was the first show that we created that was shoppable. We drove awareness of the show, not only across our streaming channel with promos, letting people know that you could shop the show. We had on-air promotional elements that gave you a QR code to scan, but also a vanity URL, because a great insight that they shared with us was the vast majority of people, when given a choice between scanning a QR code and typing in a short vanity URL, will still use the URL. And so I was very interested to hear that. And so we've really worked to create these short, memorable URLs that appear every time our QR codes appear. So we had these QR codes and URL that came up that indicated that the content that you were watching was shoppable. And when you scan that, you enter into the Tastemade store. And for Kitchen Glow Up, each episode had its own collection. and it drew in exact products as well as similar types of products for things that you saw in the episode.
That's like my dream.
Oh, same.
It's like perfect. And so I'm assuming you're planning on doing more like it.
We are. So we launched, that was just our first show, shoppable show. Since then, our stunt weeks, pizza week, and grill week were all shoppable, giving people access to the products that we were using in our grilling shows. It also provided like our favorite grilling gear and grilling adjacent products. And it's a great way, again, to move people from awareness and inspiration to product engagement and consideration. So they're very clear on the role of that type of shoppable experience. And what we've seen just even in the early days of this partnership is a significant increase in product consideration and product engagement for brands that are sponsoring those shoppable collections. So in the case of Grill Week,
I'm talking to you about Grill Week.
Yes.
I need like a baby opportunity with a baby price tag for Grill Week 2025. We're going to make it happen.
I think we can make it work.
I literally starred like Grill Week 2025. I just have a random question. So as an independent media company, you are not only, I mean, this sounds so dumb as I'm asking it, but you are not only trying to attract quote unquote advertisers or brands, but you're also trying to attract talent like your stars of your shows. And you're also trying to, I would imagine, build that user base or the subscriptions and is that a safe thing to say? Yes.
Yeah, certainly. We want people engaging with us in every way. So whether that is following us on social or finding us on anywhere you can stream for free, or taking it a step further, subscribing to our newsletter and signing up for our subscription Tastemade Plus service, we want to find a way to connect with people in all those different aspects.
And so if someone's like, they follow you on Tastemade Instagram, then is the goal to get them to subscribe so that they can watch these shows? Like, is that? Yeah.
Yes, of course, we always want to move people down our own funnel. So taking them from just fan to dedicated fan and providing incentives and reasons for them to continue to build that relationship with us. So what does the Tastemade Plus subscription unlocks? Ad-free content. It also unlocks our entire library of recipe content behind the paywall. We have some exciting new advancements around the Tastemade app as it relates to our meal planning function that's coming down the line. So there's certainly benefit as people move closer towards that subscription. But at the same time, we want to build a relationship with the consumer, regardless of whether you're a free streaming channel viewer or you're on social. And so we know that the more places that people connect with us, the more brand love they have, because we're being able to provide a different type of value, but we'll take you any way we can get. And certainly the same goes for the talent aspect of it. People come to us.
So from the brand aspect, so now we're getting into everyone like mark your like time things for, however many minutes in, because this is where we start to talk about for people like me, founders and marketers and operators of emerging brands. We know that this is probably mostly a lot of it beyond our reach from just a cost perspective. That said, there's the app, there's the newsletter, there's the streaming, there's the social. And my guess is there's Grill Week 2025, hint, hint. There's lots of ways I would imagine brands can exist or work with Tastemade to bring people into our worlds through yours. And so I guess if you could now sort of, we're probably not going to be able to like build our own show, nor would that necessarily be something that you guys would want us to do. But what are some of the ways that emerging brands specifically can leverage the content and the amazing media platform that you guys have built?
Sure. We are really dedicated to working with brands at every point of their development and growth. That is one thing that I've really appreciated, is the ability to be nimble in our partnerships and really meet the advertisers where they are in terms of just financial, but also just bandwidth. We know that as an independent company ourselves, we have a different bandwidth than a massive company, and we understand that our partners do as well. So we've put into place a lot of really effective entry level ways to get involved. We have our newsletter sponsorship, where we can take the brand's content and you can own the what to eat this week or what to make this week section. And we can take your best existing assets, whether those are static images, GIFs, your recipe content, and serve it up to our most engaged fans across our weekly newsletter. We also have standard RON, run of network media. So you can do a TV buy on Tastemade streaming, where we can run your commercial spot across our streaming channels. We can do a variety of different targeting tactics to make sure that we're reaching the right consumers. And then there's also just content alignment. We have a plethora of fantastic content that would align well with any number of brands. And we're able to create something that is turnkey, but also effective in giving you the opportunity to align with content that people are looking to engage with. So sponsored content is very easy. It's a great way in for brands, but we're also very open to getting creative and understanding what you have, what assets you already have available. And is there a way that we can put a spin on it that makes sense for our audience without having to do additional work of creating new and additional content?
That's awesome. And so, like, for example, I see that there's like a whole video library that you can sort by cuisine or ingredient. Are there opportunities for brands to, I guess if it's already there, probably not. You can't go back in and be like, mayo, or you can use Haven's Kitchen aioli. And here's like, that's probably not gonna, that doesn't sound like an easy path, but are there opportunities for brands on those just, cooking videos that you guys are putting out?
Yeah. We actually have done a lot of work in the space of editing existing content that we have to make it feel relevant to the brand. There are virtual product integration partners that we can work with, that we can actually take an existing piece of content, put your brand into that content as if it's been there all along. There are also ways where we can leverage our library of recipes, and instead of creating one video, we can tap into our library of content where Chipotle aioli would be great, or aioli would be great. And then we can go ahead and reshoot beautiful statics to correspond with those recipe videos. So when we're able to take that additional recipe development step out of it, making it a lot more accessible for brands to tap into content that we know that works, or recipes that we know that works, that isn't a huge lift.
Very, very cool. And then going back for a second to sort of like one of the things that I struggle with a lot, and I'm not even doing any of the actual content, is like that sort of having to be everywhere all at once. So, some people are like, just pick one, just pick YouTube and put everything into YouTube. And I'm like, that's great in theory. It doesn't really work in practice, because to your point, people are getting their content where they want it. And it's kind of like building your own D2C channel and assuming everyone's going to come there. Like, you kind of have to be where people are. And so what that does is puts a lot of pressure on brands to be on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube, have a newsletter, on Pinterest. And they're all like what you said, they're all slightly different. They can't really be the same thing. It's not replicable. It doesn't really work. And ideally, they all kind of support each other. So the sort of the ding, ding, ding goal is that someone sees you on one of those channels, but then kind of finds you and starts to engage with you on the others as well. I guess my question for you, since you are a big fish in all of this, is how do you take each channel to support the other channels? I mean, it kind of goes back to like, you have these different places where people can engage with you, but what do you find effective in sort of taking those newsletter people and getting them to the streaming, or saying, hey, you're on social now, look at these shows that we have, and look at this video library we have. Oh, and by the way, you should download our app. Like, I know it's a big question, but I just would love to hear any thoughts you have.
Certainly. It's a huge task, and it can be very overwhelming for brands to try to figure out how, like you said, to be everywhere all at once. Mm-hmm. When it comes to brands, that is a big reason why a lot of smaller brands do come to us for partnerships, because we can help them show up in all the right places with all the right content without them having to have a social agency and a creative agency that does their TVC spots, which is their television mm-hmm. spots, and really coming to us as a one-stop shop for powering the entire ecosystem of their campaign with different types of content. We, for our own sake, use all of our B2C channels to support other aspects of the Tastemade ecosystem. We're actively running campaigns to support our Tastemade Plus subscription business on our streaming channel, where we know people are engaging with us there. We're also highlighting upcoming premieres on our social channels, within our newsletter. But I think that as a brand, to assume that the goal is to drive consumers to somewhere else is a bit misleading, which is why instead of trying to get people to click through mm-hmm. from Instagram to a YouTube video, you just have a lot of drop off there, because people going back to why people are on that platform, they're on that platform
because they want to be
Instagram.
On the platform. Right.
Exactly. And so the approach that we take is, how do we just make sure that we're telling that story here mm-hmm. in perhaps a slightly different format, but not try to move people from one platform to the other, literally, as opposed to really programming them something. But then also, when they go onto YouTube, how can we make sure that when they're searching or they're looking at our content on YouTube, that they're also seeing another iteration of our campaign show up there?
Okay, I just had like a massive eureka. I think you actually just said something that's going to impact my life, which is really fun when that happens. Yeah. I mean, yay. And I'm like, I'll be back next week. No, I think what you just said is so monumental, because I am in a way always trying to move someone somewhere. Like I'm trying to get them to, when they're in store, follow us, or when they're following us, go over to Amazon and buy us. Or, there's always this this thing is in service of another thing. And what you just said is that's misguided. Don't just be on the thing, and be really good on the thing, wherever it is. And if they are all really good, then there will be a natural sort of, okay, I will want to be a part of more because I'll be interested in more. But getting someone to move over or click out or download a thing or scan a thing, it's hard. And it's hard because they don't want to do it. And you're probably going to annoy them trying to get them to do it. I think that's So I love that frame of like just being great content on each different thing where people are engaging with it the way they want to engage with it. And then presumably they will find it. I mean, I guess that's the big thing. They then go seek out other opportunities to engage.
Yeah. And I think when you are going to move people over, again, think about yourself as a consumer. Like, what is going to get you to actively leave one platform and go to do something else? So what's the call to action is so important when you are trying to make that, to push people through to that, like that new place is, did you like what you see? Are you interested in more content? Like, are you interested in more recipes?
Right.
That's a call to action that we're always encouraging. Like, there is a way to do it well. It's just making sure that you're clear with the viewer about what value they're getting for that engagement. And then that leaves it up to them.
I talk so much about the value that our actual food products offer. And I don't think I've considered as deeply the value that the content offers. Like, I think of it very simply. The content is great because it helps people. Like, we don't just do recipes with our products. We do how to store your herbs and how to sharpen your knives and, when to buy this thing at peak. Like, we do try to be sort of beyond just shilling the product and truly helpful and educational. But again, that's more in service of something else as opposed to it just being really good content. So, okay, that was very helpful. And I have a feeling that this is going to lead you very nicely into my next question, which is like, you work with a lot of emerging brands, or your team does. You see brands come to you and be like, help, please. So what are some of the mistakes that you see us making when we are trying to make content? And what are some tips generally that you found across the board kind of can help emerging brands reach more people and do it effectively?
Yeah, I do think that in the grand scheme of things, emerging brands are on the savvier end because they're reliant on that communication across social, and they were oftentimes born out of that.
Yep.
So they have a deeper understanding of the social platforms, and frankly, just a lot less baggage that comes with how they can communicate with the consumer. I would imagine that it's quite liberating being an emerging brand because you don't have to honor the 200-year-old tradition of your brand that means something very different today.
Or run it through like 12 people who can put the kibosh on it and have never been on social media. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. But in general, I think that the best content that we create is when a brand comes to us and trusts the process. Like, trusting the process is so important. You should be choosing a partner that you believe in their voice, you want to reach their audience, and you're willing to relinquish that control to make sure that you're doing it in a way that feels really authentic to them. Because that's the whole point of coming to a media company like Tastemade, is not just because we create good content. You can have any production company. You could find a production company that can create you great content, but you're coming because you believe in the authenticity and the equity that partner rubs off on you as it relates to the audience. And so being able to say, here's the things that are important, but beyond this, I trust you to create content that makes sense for your platform. That is when you're going to get the best results. And it's those brands that are most willing to do that we love to work with the most, and also just create great content.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Okay, last question. This has been like mind blowing for me. Who knew? I like,
I'm so happy.
it's a funny one for me because I don't, usually I'm interviewing people that kind of do what I do or that I've worked with or that this is just like, this was a little out of my comfort zone. And yet I got so much out of it. I hope everyone listening did too. Last question is, in the world of Tastemade, what are some things that, aside from more shoppable content, what are some things that you're excited about or that we should know about or that you want us to know about?
Yeah. Streaming is such an important part of the future of Tastemade. It is, we were the pioneers on FAST, which is free ad-supported streaming television. And there's just so much exciting stuff that is happening in and around our streaming ecosystem. This year, our slate of original and licensed programs represents like one of our truly most exciting lineups to date. We have shows from tons of notable chefs, including Andrew Zimmern, Allison Roman, who I am a huge personal fan of. She's making her TV debut on Tastemade. Very cool. Jamie Oliver, who's making his US streaming debut, as well as like so many great fresh faces and fresh voices like Ellen Marie Bennett, and then also tried and true Tastemade faces. So we're really thinking about the Tastemade streaming channel as your favorite chef's favorite channel. So if you want to go to the place that the greats are watching, and you can find your favorite chef on our channel. So we're investing a ton in continuing to build the Tastemade brand on streaming, and also really finding new and interesting ways to take what we're doing on streaming, be it a premiere of a show or our stunt weeks like Grill Week and Pizza Week, taking those and expanding those even further throughout our ecosystem and putting the entire ecosystem in support of and in elevation of these big tentpole moments on streaming. So I'm really excited about that. We've got a lot of fun stuff on. We just did a great collaboration for Pizza Week with Prince Street Pizza, where we did a special Tastemade slice available at all of their locations. And
that's
again,
cool.
Yeah, that's like a great way to show up in service of the streaming centric stunt week, but in a way that was very specific to that marketing channel. So we're really excited about streaming in general and all that it offers our viewers and our advertisers.
Yeah, amazing. Well, McCall, I can't thank you enough. This was super fun for me. I'm like about to go Slack my whole team, my whole new lease on life. And thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. It's been great being with you.
Awesome. Liam, thank you. Welcome back. Happy you're back. And thanks for engineering today's show. And everyone, you really all love Jane from Rudy's. I got so many wonderful messages about that interview. She is a gem. So thank you for all your messages as always. And I will be back next week with another episode of In the Sauce.
In the Sauce is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.